thank you for coming out this morning. As you recall, the last time that we met on this project was in February 25th of 2023, before the pilot program started. And so it was raining and we were in a tent, and so much has changed since then, and that's why we're here. I'm Sean Dugan, I'm the Trails Program Manager, and I am stewarding this project at this point from the Park District. And just before I get started, how many people have been in this park in the last year, have visited in the last year? That was an easy question. Okay, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. How about in the last month? In the last week? So that's great. So this is your community here. It looks like most of you here visit this park on a regular basis. So is there anyone here who's not, is it their first time in this park today? Okay. Is there anyone who's not familiar with the Briones Pilot Project? Okay, good. So I know what to focus on. I want to introduce a couple of our board members that are here today with us, and our staff is all filtered. We did outnumber you until about 20 minutes ago, and they'll introduce themselves throughout the day. But we have Director Colin Coffey, who's here. Thank you. And I don't know where he is, but John Mercurio, Director Mercurio, is right there. Thanks for coming. There's you have an open-minded board right now. So this project is a reflection of trying some new things. So why are we doing the pilot? So over the years, we've seen park use grow quite a bit. During the pandemic, it tripled. And we started consistently hearing more and more concerns raised that the use balance in this park was becoming imbalanced. There were certain users that didn't feel comfortable coming here, and there were certain users who were asking for more. And long story short, we had a trail user working group discussion for about a year and a half back in 2020 during the pandemic, and out of that came a lot of different ideas and discussions. And one of them was a proposal to do something in Briones to kind of get a handle on the management of this land. There's a lot of bootleg trails built in this park. There's bootleg trails being built in almost every one of our parks, but we needed to take a different stance because we've tried to close and restore and manage this situation so many different times in so many different ways, and none of it was working. So this is a fresh sort of kitchen, everything but the kitchen sink approach to trying to regain control of the situation to try to balance out the users and diminish conflict in the park. So we did that by actually so many of the bootlegs we've closed and restored, but some of those bootlegs we designated as open, as you know, the colored. And we separated users. So some of those are one-way only trails, some of those are user-only trails. For the first time in the Park District, we have bike-only trails. And then we also implemented in the zone the odd-even day that you're all familiar with. I will say that's the strategy that receives the most comments. And we're really wanting to hear from you today about some of these strategies. And so how we're going to do that is I'm going to share with you the goals and the strategies and the success criteria that we're shooting for, again, just real quickly. And then we're going to break out into tables. And you can see there's tables throughout, and there's maps, and you'll have a facilitator and a note taker. And the idea is to have conversations among yourselves and to also provide feedback on what's working, what isn't. But really, the time is now about a year in. It started in April of 2023. We're a little bit over a year in. Now's the time to start thinking about what happens after the pilot. And so I want you to think about that as you're having your discussions. A little advice. There are going to be way different ends of the spectrum as far as how you feel about this pilot and about your philosophy on trail use here today. On one end, you can possibly be having a conversation with someone who doesn't believe people should be in our parks at all, right? They should be preservation areas. And on the other end, you have folks that are, no matter what rules we put in place and whatever we try, are going to do whatever they want, right? So what we're asking you to do is meet us in the middle. Come from the end. I know everyone's got their opinions, and we're entitled to that. And we're going to hear that, and we're going to write that down. But if you come into the middle, we can have the discussion that actually is productive and that sometimes results in compromise, but it's where the magic happens, is in the middle, okay? And so I just want to encourage you to have an open mind today, and so that we can get the information we need to move forward and make things better here. So on that note, I just wanted Joe to say something really quick, because there's no denying it. We know the pilot's not perfect. And we know that when we move out of this pilot project and whatever we decide to do after that, it's probably not going to be perfect either. Some people are going to like it, some aren't. We're trying to please everyone, but we're not going to please everyone 100%, right? But there's no denying that there's been a change in this park, and that we've seen that we can't go back. So I just wanted Joe to just say something real quick, because he's been here a long time. So this is Joe Miller, and he's the park supervisor for Briones.
Hi, everybody. So you all kind of probably remember at the beginning of this, there were some doubts about if we could accomplish anything here. And I can tell you that the Rangers at Briones had faith in you. They worked so hard to get this ready, to open up this pilot, get the signs in, because they believed in you. And it worked, in my opinion. From what I can see, everyone is being civil to each other out on the trails. People are waving hi, they're smiling, and that's all because of you. This couldn't have worked without your help and participation. So I want to thank you for everything you've done, and I look forward to maybe seeing this continue, and I'd just love to see you guys keep at it and prove the naysayers wrong. You know, just let's try to keep what we've got. And again, thank you for your work in this. You had as big a part as we did.
Thanks, Joe. Okay. So I'm going to go through some of the goals and success and remind you, like, what are the sort of pillars of the pilot project. But first, I want to say that we have one more board director that just came, and it's Dee Rosario. Thanks for showing, Dee. Acknowledge your presence. So these goals that I'm about to go through real quickly, what they are, they're sort of the pillars of our experiment here. And why they're important is to measure the compliance of, like, how are they working, how are they not working? And so that we can either expand some of those strategies to the rest of the park or other parks of the park district. So I'll read through them real quick, and then I'll kind of dive in on each one for a second here. So goal 1 is to eliminate the creation of new illegal bootleg trails in the pilot zone. Goal number 2, close and restore designated bootleg trails that are more impactful. 3, increase trail volunteerism to assist with restoration and maintenance. 4, obtain trail use data, and we have a lot of data. Goal number 5, collect qualitative data in relation to the management objectives. That's kind of what we're doing right now today. We have a lot of quantitative data. We have numbers, we have counters, we have cameras, but nothing substitutes the conversations that we have with you. And then last, compliance, a certain level of compliance with the management strategies and the pilot project rules. So first, so goal number 1, eliminate the creation of new illegal bootleg trails in the pilot zone. When we specifically said this because we need to manage this 1,600-acre area that's the zone, and we needed to collect data and measure whether we're successful within that zone. But I want to be very clear, the goal isn't just to stop illegal trail building in the zone. The goal is to stop illegal trail building. And the reason why we think we can do that is because we're going to take the quality over quantity approach to this. So I just want to be really clear that we are showing that there have been no new illegal bootleg trails built in the zone. But we're not stopping there. The whole goal, the whole reason this works is if illegal trail building stops altogether in the whole park. So closing and restoring, check, okay, sorry, it went out for a second. Close and restore designated bootleg trails. Okay, so the goal here was that we were gonna identify the most impactful trails. And so 75% of those trails that were going through creeks, that were going through endangered species habitat, that were erosive and damaging to the park resources, which is something that we need to do as a park district, is protect those things. 75% of all of the trails that we identified for restoration would be closed, and that 100% of the ones that we closed would not be ridden on or hiked on anymore. And I'm happy to say that we're seeing just about 100% on the trails that we've physically closed, that we've blocked, that we put up signs, and we've scarified and restored in some way. Those trails are not being used anymore. And so those habitat areas that you see in between the bootleg trails are now back to being refuges for the endangered species and other critters that live in this park. There are a couple that we haven't been able to restore because we actually need permits, because they're in such sensitive areas. We were unable to close them, and so we get 1 or 2 riders on that occasionally. But for the most part, that's been a very successful endeavor. Increasing trail volunteerism. We want 90% of the events that we scheduled to happen, and we want 90% attendance at those. We've far surpassed that. Last year we had 11 events and over 700 volunteer hours, and this year alone we've had 7 events. Sorry, there was 11 last year, 7 this year already. I'm sorry, it's a lot of data, excuse me. We have 7 planned, we've had 3 already this year, and we're already up to about 1,200 hours of volunteer time. So the community here that visits this park a lot, is coming out and taking a stake in what happens here. And that's what's making this a success. And I want to just really, really focus on that point, that we had a lot of things happening in this park that were in the shadows, a lot of things that, activities that we didn't know about or couldn't control. Well, now that we've brought in the community to work with us to help steward this along. And that was something that I was very skeptical that would happen. And I'm very pleased to see how much that's happening. I want to acknowledge the stewards of Briones, who are out here every week, patrolling, watching, messaging on social media, communicating, acting as the middle group that is communicating with the district and your user group. The whole idea is that the park district cannot be the only entity policing and enforcing these rules. The community has got to help self-police a little bit, and that's happening, and we're really pleased to see that. So thank you. Bicycle Trails Council of the East Bay as well, and many others. And then obtaining trail use data. We have so much data, I'm not even gonna go into it, but it's on our project page. I will just say really quickly that there's 4,746 users in the zone weekly. And I'm sorry, 678 daily. 64% of the users are coming in from Alhambra. This is useful information. We kind of knew that, but the numbers are confirming that. And we've increased, let's see, we have, so as far, okay, I'll get into that in a second, sorry. And then, but the qualitative data, we want a 75% positive response rate for this. We're hearing positive comments, but every conversation we have and every survey we get and email we get is like, this is great, thank you so much, but there's this thing. Okay, so that's kind of what we're gonna do today, where we want you to look at a map, give us good feedback, but we want to know what's working and what isn't. Okay, so there's gonna be a dot exercise that you will be placing dots with your facilitators and explaining why you're putting that dot there, and then there'll be a note taker taking down as much as we can. So we're gonna break out into these tables, maybe 10 people, 7 tables, thank you. Maybe 10 people max at each table. Try to intermix if you can. It's not crucial that you do, but you might have better conversations that way. We've released surveys at the beginning. We had one last summer, and then this is another survey period. So we're gonna hear from you today, but then there are ways that you can comment on this pilot. There's a comment card if you don't really feel like speaking today, or you can go to the project site and fill out the questions there. There's a constant email list that you can email when there's issues. There's coasters, drink coasters over there, and on the back there's a QR code. You can scan that in and it'll take you right to the project site. And then lastly, and certainly not least, is compliance with the management strategies. And so there's so many strategies. I won't really get, again, there's data posted on that project site. You can look through the graphs and charts, and that's constantly changing. I want to thank my staff and the park staff here for maintaining all the counters and cameras, etc. These are ways that we measure how this is going. And right now, so for instance, the odd even day compliance rate has gone up over time. So at first, I think there was a little bit of hesitation. There's a little distrust on both sides, I think. And that's gotten better. So we're looking at right now, according to the data on let's say, for instance, on a bike day, we track how many bikes are coming into the park. On the days where bikes are allowed, on the days when the bikes are not allowed, we're seeing an 85% compliance rate there. So we're not seeing bikers come into the zone. And what we do is it's triggered at the entrance, and then we look at what's called the Strava data. It's a app that people use to track their rides and their runs. And then we also have artificial intelligence data that we look at. It's basically cell phone data. So we know what trails are not supposed to be being used on the off day, and we measure whether they are or not. And we've seen a drastic decrease in the illegal trail use on those days that they're not allowed. So 85% on the alternative day for bikers, but the Strava data is showing 90%. So thank you for complying with the rules. Last but not least, use on the closed trails, as I mentioned, we're almost 100% compliance, and that's a big deal, because if it doesn't work here in this 1,600 acre zone and people are still going to use trails we keep trying to close, it's not going to work elsewhere. And so this is a good indication that what we're doing and the middle ground that we're reaching is working. So, and I want to just point out too, as far as compliance goes, that in the last year, our public safety department has spent over 150 hours in this park. And there were 71 incidents logged as of April of 2024, and 56 citations given. That's more effort that's more effort than our public safety is putting out in any other area. And so we know that enforcement is a part of this puzzle, but we also know that it's not the only part. But there are definitely, like I said, that spectrum. There are people that are still not following the rules, and I just encourage you to sort of nudge them to get on board, because the future of trail use and trail management at the Park District and mountain biking in the Park District and how we manage that really depends on this working. And I know that you recognize that, but this is important. I appreciate the self-policing that's going on out here. So, and then lastly, I'll just say thank you for being here today. We can break out into tables. I hope I didn't go too long. And overall, the bottom line is that we were also trying to reduce conflict in this park. And we're hearing that has changed. There's more, like Joe said, there's more politeness, there's waving, there's smiling. Nobody should be angry in the park. And we're trying to go there. But we know it's not 100%. We know that there's still work to do. Thank you for being patient, and thank you for being open-minded today. And now I'd like to turn it over to my staff and everybody over here. Dork, how do you want to do this?
Just everyone, there's 7 tables spread out with maps over here. So just find a table. We're going to try to make it even numbers. If one has way more, we'll adjust and send people over to other locations.
So for those who didn't hear that, try to just congregate to some tables. We tried to pick shady spots. Apologies if it's not. And again, just really appreciate your involvement. It takes a village. Thank you.
Hey folks, real quick, Eddie, if we could reconvene at about 11:15, we'll reconvene where we are now, and we'll do some reporting out and further discussion. But as Sean said, find the tables that have the maps on them and the sticky notes and the notepads. And we want to look at about 10 people-ish per table, 10 to 12 people per table. Thank you.
I hate to interrupt the great discussion you're having right now, but we do want to kind of close out with a little report back, and nobody's listening. I got this thing cranked up.
We got so much more for bikes because if you get in the master plan, it's
Dun, 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 dun.
it keeps going. And I think that's the huge thing. So yeah, it's way more work.
All right, yeah, start clapping really loud. Just yeah. All right, it's good. I think that's working.
Every Wednesday, first Wednesday of every month in the summer. We just had
All right, everybody, we just want to do this. We want our note takers to kind of give some of the main points they heard, kind of reiterate what everyone's hearing, like, you know, what we were hearing at the tables. I think you'll probably hear some themes. And then if we have time, you know, we could take a few questions. But the one thing we don't want to do is have the same conversation we just had again, because not because we don't love to talk about this, but because we do have to go home at some point. There's no wine and beer. Yeah, so. All right, so if you guys can hear me and start hearing the note takers, we'll start with Amanda, and you'll go through.
Hi everybody. We had a great group that had a good mix of both hikers, bikers, and some equestrians. So I feel like we had a good representation for pretty much everybody. When we asked about the user conflict, if it had been reduced, 7 of the 9 people in our group said yes, that they felt like the user conflict had been reduced throughout the project. Then we kind of talked about general thoughts on the project, and general thoughts were that the trails are now safer, and that the stewards of Briones are doing a great job out there, but that there are some sections that could use improvement, including intersection signs at intersections of the trails, especially where it's a bike-only trail and it goes to a hiker trail, and also adding chicanes at the bottom of large declines when going into another trail to help reduce safety concerns there. And the one area that seemed to be a trouble spot was the B4 Texas Toast area, and there we came up with a variety of ways to work on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm just going to jump in to say a couple of the themes we heard. We had a great conversation. Lucy represented the equestrian community and spoke about how Pine Tree Trail has for years and continues to be a bit of a scary spot for the horse riding community. So we're looking at ways to actually improve that, encourage riders to go elsewhere, or work together. Other thoughts? Alternative days, perhaps expanding the zone, including southern riding trails below the zone, and evaluating those would be preferred by bikers. Obviously opening up some of the trails that are in limbo right now as well was another thought from the biking community. And then also improving signage where we can. At the beginning of Diablo View over here, adding more pilot signs. We did just add a whole batch to the zone. You'll notice a couple more maps out there in the middle so you can find where you are if that's needed. So doing our best. I'll leave it there.
Hi, thanks everybody for coming out. We had a really great user group variation. We had cyclists, we had a representative for the kids cycling, we had somebody from Native Plants, we had equestrians and hikers. So it was a great conversation. Everybody was really collaborative in finding areas where there's areas to improve, where there's still challenges, places where it's not conducive to hiking or to cycling or to horses, and we talked about it at length and got a lot of good details, and as well where it works well and where people are seeing improvements. And overall, I think everyone is seeing a lot of improvements on the the behaviors on the trails. Where we did hear about one part for the equestrian community is that because the horses especially can be sensitive, for the days where there are supposed to be no bikes and there isn't compliance and they come across bikes, it's causing consternation for the equestrians, and so there may be we are losing those users rather than not hearing from them, that they're just leaving and not coming out anymore on those days. So that's something that was really important to take note of. And we appreciate everybody who does comply and follows the odd even rules about it. And also, there was an interesting comment from our plant person that on some of the trail, there's a trail where there was some clearing that now we're seeing an increase of invasive species. So we're going to have to be on top of that. So that was good. We had some great sort of takeaway ideas that, you know, with like signage, just like we've talked about in the past, like for the difficulty level, for challenging levels, and just I think any other
Yeah, I mean, the PB7 discussion, we talked a lot about
dual use trails, sharing, and whatnot. So
that doesn't work for everybody.
right. So I think overall, though, it was a really constructive conversation. So I appreciate everyone's input.
Thanks, Jen.
So the overall general consensus of the pilot project is positive. One key note is the bypass. If you take a look on the map, the bypass is designated on Toyon Canyon Trail. A lot of the cyclists express concerns over that due to the elevation and the steepness of the trail. So perhaps maybe if we turn Briones Road Trail into a bypass, so that way everyone can access it. It'll be a little easier. Another concern is Briones Road going up due to a lot of vehicle traffic. B1 and B2 received a lot of positive reviews. The signage definitely helped, especially with hikers coming up or prohibiting hikers from coming up. Allows the bicyclists to ride the trail a little easier. And I believe I have one more thing. The bicycle ramp on B6, it's currently installed kind of not at the beginning of B6. It's a little bit towards Spangler, right before Spangler and Tabletop. So perhaps if we can put a ramp right at B6, that would be a little helpful. PB6, excuse me.
Okay, thanks, Jen.
All right, we had a great mix of folks. All users were represented. We had folks who've been using the trails in this park since before it was a park, up to folks who are here on their second or third day, and lots of folks in between who live nearby and are using the park probably more days a week than not. So some of the takeaways, in addition to what a lot of other folks said, are there was comments about possibly adding more variety to the areas where we have opened directional trails to bikes, so that more beginner and intermediate riders can use those options, and it would get them off of some of the multi-use fire roads that are open for recreation, like the Alhambra Creek Trail in particular. For the most part, I think everybody was in favor of the directional trails, and there was even talk about making some of the dual-use trails directional to manage expectations for folks who are primarily hiking on which way the bikes could be approaching. Folks were in favor of they enjoyed using the open bootleg trails, and I think the hikers and equestrians enjoyed that the bikers were primarily sticking to a lot of the open bootleg trails. We had mixed reviews on the alternative days and whether those should be kept. And then there was some talk about if we opened or expanded the pilot area to include more areas in the central part of the park, we might spread users out more and be able to spread primarily bikes out intentionally. I think that was some of the main takeaways for our group.
22 had a good mix of all three different user groups. For the most part, everybody in our group was pretty positive on the program and the pilot project. One of the big wins was the chicane at the bottom of Hank and Frank.
Yes.
Several people expressed the benefit of it. At the same time, they also added that there may be some things that we could do from the Alhambra Creek Trail between the chicane and the staging area here to separate users a little more, because bikes especially do tend to pick up speed as they come down the road, and so maybe there's some different trail work we can do there. Pine Tree Trail was mentioned as well as Pine Tree Trail was also mentioned as one that has some conflicts and might need some more work done on it. The trade-off, or the every other day bike use, horse use thing is working. Most of the people in our group were okay with it. Still having some challenges on how best to communicate that, though. It was brought up that the electric signboard that was at the beginning of the road coming in, many people saw that and they just turned around, rather than knowing that there was a way around the pilot program, and there was still areas of the park that they could use, even though the pilot area was closed off to them that day. So some work to do on signage. As far as going forward, one of the big things that was mentioning was continuing to partner with leaders in each of the different user groups as being a key way to get the message out and get buy-in from all the different user groups. Lastly, one of the things we could do better too would be the education and or relaying of information as far as not just the wins that we're having with the different users on the bikes and the hikers and the equestrian, but also communicating the wins that we're having for the environmental side and the wildlife side. Would be good to communicate that as well.
Thanks, Dave.
Hi there. We had a pretty diverse group. It was mostly mountain bikers, a couple of equestrians, and some hikers. There was overwhelmingly positive. There was some concern from the equestrians that they're still having a lot of issues with coming up on bikers and being startled. Some of the things that were suggested would be for a beginner zone. Most of the trails here are advanced to intermediate riders only, and it's not that safe for a beginner to go down. Possible XC loop, more because most of the trails here are like strictly downhill oriented. And then a possible day where people can come and learn about approaching horses and horse etiquette while on a bike, and what to do and what not to do. So just having a day where people could come out and actually have interactions with that in like a controlled environment.
Catalina horses.
Thanks. I just wanted to make the note takers talk through the microphone, not just me. Okay, so here's what's going to happen next. Thank you again for your time. It kind of concludes the formal programming of today, and obviously we have more notes that were just summarized here. So we're going to go back in the next few weeks and we're going to summarize those and post those in some way, shape, or form. Remember, you can still comment on a comment card or on the website continuously. We're going to keep that open for a while. As we mentioned, this is the year sort of check-in with you, and we, I just want to say we also heard that some kind of event where we mix bikes and horseback riders together and to kind of get use and sort of, we're gonna think about that maybe in this fall. So keep an eye out for some sort of event like that where maybe we have some. The suggestion was to have beer and wine.
Yeah, rodeo.
I don't.
Mountain bikes will bring beer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That usually helps. But yeah, so we are going to give a final report as we sunset this pilot program. We're going to take all the quantitative data, all the qualitative data, the comments and experiences that we have, and we're going to make a report in December to the Board Executive Committee, and we'll do a really good job of letting you all know of when that is, and likely have some recommendations on how we should move forward after the pilot. The pilot does not officially end until April 2025. It's a 2-year pilot program, but we want to think about how we're moving after the pilot now and very soon into the future, so that we don't lose the momentum and the trust that we've built and the positive things that we've achieved. But we also want to address the things that we have been hearing consistently that aren't really working. So stay tuned. Thank you again. Thank you to this team here. I don't know if you know. Yeah, give them a round. Thank you to our board members that are here. This is the most intense and hands-on management experience that the Park District has, I think, ever taken in anywhere. Yeah, and it's not sustainable. But what we're doing is we're learning so much that we hope that this can be implemented elsewhere, and that these lessons that we've learned can help us in the future. But again, thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for being here today. Are there just maybe 3 questions? Or is there anybody that has an overarching question that we haven't heard about or talked about? Is there something burning? No? Yes.
How is this all paid for? And how does that impact the budget of the park? And what are you not doing that you would normally do because you're spending all the money on the signage and everything else for this? Just out of interest.
So the question was, how is this all being paid for, and how has it impacted the park budget, and also the things that we may not be doing as a result of paying so much attention to this? Well, I'm just going to answer that at a high level. We budgeted about $200,000 for general pilot studies in multiple different areas. So we were looking at some areas in Wildcat, but mostly this. So about $200,000 out of the general fund, general manager allocated for us to be able to buy counters, to spend money on signs, different web applications, and mostly equipment. So if you're familiar with government financing, it's not that much money, but it's a significant investment into this area. As far as the park goes, this was a major impact on the staff here, but with the help of my staff and crews from the CCC, from the Civicor, and all the volunteers and the stewards of Briones and BTCEB, it hasn't been as big of an impact. I think that you're still able to manage your park and empty the trash cans, right? Yeah, I don't know if I have a number for you, but yeah, we're still, there were about 67 trees that went down in the winter. And so that's gonna, we took care of that, right? So we're still managing the park, but it's because everybody's stepping it up. But over time, we're gonna need to have a less of a touch on our parks, just because we have 125,000 plus acres to manage. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, one in the back.
Has it even increased revenue in the park, or are there ways to capitalize on the amount of people that are going to the park more in a way that's equal to mostly everyone? There's monthly passes,
right,
weekdays,
so
finding out what that is and if it can help the park and everything that it needs.
Why don't we note that? Yeah. So the question was, how can we use this opportunity to increase revenues in the park and things? That's a great question, and I think we should note, and as we move forward, how can we do that? Because we know that there is an economic, there's economic potential with this. But again, the volunteers and the folks that are coming out to maintain this park are really what have played the hugest role in us being able to do this. But that's a great point and comment, and I'm asking that one of our note takers note that for moving forward in the future. Okay, one or two more.
I was going to jump in just real quick though. This is the work that we do. We manage trails and manage parks, and so this isn't a new, something new or out of the different. part of the reason why we undertook this is because we were spending a lot of staff time responding to complaints of trail content. And we're spending a lot of staff time addressing resource concerns. So what we did and what Sean is really trying to lead is this conversation in a positive, proactive direction instead of a reactive direction. So I would say in terms of staff time, this is just the work that we do. It's not that we're spending more or less, it's just that we're spending the time on something that hopefully is positive and results in a better environment for the users and for the resources, rather than constantly responding to complaints of trail conflict or resource concerns.
Thank you, Brian. I hope everyone heard that. Right. I mean, the amount of time and money we have spent in the past on trying to close the trails that we didn't want far surpasses the amount of money that we're spending now, or hopefully in the future. What's that?
I was just acknowledging the gentleman in front for you.
Oh, thanks.
You touched on it, but might be a great way to finish the volunteer efforts. How significant have you seen that is, and then what opportunities do you see in the future?
This is a volunteer question. And
I'm sorry.
think, so the question is how significant is the volunteer effort, and how can we manage this in the future? Jess Sloan, our volunteer programs manager.
Hi, everybody. Volunteers have played a massive role in this. This project would not have gotten off the ground the way that it did without the support of the volunteers that have come out. And one of the things that we talked about a lot in the group that I was in is that we've seen the same amount of people come out for the trail restoration days as we have for the trail maintenance days. Trail maintenance days, we're building trails. Trail restoration days, we're taking trails that people like and making them go away. So the fact that we have had this support for these projects has been massive. Not only that, but as you can imagine, it takes a lot of staff power to make a volunteer event happen, but we get so much work done with the help of volunteers. So the volunteers have been pivotal to this and have created a community. I mean, they have an amazing website if you want to check it out. It's really great. We do volunteer projects as often as staff can, but then they also help out. It's just been a really outstanding relationship, and has built that trust that has allowed us to really make sure that these things are happening. So I just wanted to say the volunteers have been pivotal, like absolutely pivotal.
I want to thank you all again for coming, and I want to let you know that if you go to ebparks.org/BPP, you'll get to the pilot project page, and by today you will have an online survey link. So if you have more to say, you forgot about something you wanted to say, you can go onto the online survey link and include more comments than you did today. And then there's also a really great interactive map that was created by our GIS department, right? Mary Rose. So Mary Rose created a map where you can actually flag spots and make comments directly on the map. So you can go in there and really make yourselves heard. So we appreciate you all coming today. Sean, do you have any final comments? Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody's help in making this project a success so far.